Human Dynamics resilience programs are designed to empower leaders, energize teams, and create organizations that not only withstand pressure but excel through it. Let's work together to build resilience that drives performance and lasting growth.
Good afternoon. Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining us this day. This is Dynamic Dialogues by Human Dynamic, and this is where we have real conversations with dynamic leaders building resilient workforces. And I'm Ian from Human Dynamic Philippines, and I'm the managing director. And at Human Dynamic, our mission is to build resilience, enhance wellness, and develop sustainability through our Employee Assistance Program Plus services. And our topic today is at the very core of what we do, which is well-being is not a perk, what it really takes to sustain people in high pressure work. I am so happy and grateful to have Sonali Sardana to have her featured guest. And she is a clinical psychologist and director of wellness and resiliency for over 15 years, spanning across healthcare, corporate wellness, and trust and safety operations. She specializes in bridging compassion and performance, designing trauma informed hiring processes, and scaling global well being frameworks that treat mental health as a strategic advantage and not a checkbox. At Concentrix, she led the global rollout of pre-hire psychosocial risk assessments and post-exit EAP support, and spearheaded a cross-regional well-being model that reduced burnout risk by 42% and shaped global policy. She regularly partners with CHROs on measuring the ROI of mental health investments and has represented organizational well-being strategy at international conferences. Sonali's approach blends evidence-based psychology with business acumen, built on the belief that resilient cultures aren't accidental. They are engineered into how work gets done. So join me in welcoming Sonali. Hello, Sonali. Good morning. How are you? Sorry, Sonali. Can you please repeat that? I can't quite hear you. I think we are experiencing a bit of audio difficulty. Sonali, that's okay. We can wait just a few minutes. Maybe we can mute or unmute. So unfortunately, there's no audio still. Sonali. So while we're waiting for Sonali to fix her audio, which was functioning a while ago when we did our tests, right? Maybe we can invite our viewers, our leaders joining us today to just check out Human Dynamic page or Human Dynamic website. And maybe you can also share on the chat what you are, what questions you might have personally while we're waiting for her. We are excited for your questions, of course. Perhaps you can reflect on your experience of wellness and resilience at your own workplace. And if you are a leader, maybe you can also reflect on how you advocate for well being and foster wellness amongst your teams.
Hello.
There!
Finally got fixed.
Goodness, you are audible, and we are very much excited, Sonali, to hear about your thoughts. But first, how are you doing today, Sonali?
I'm doing very well after the technology hiccup. Yes, doing pretty well. How about you?
I'm good, and I'm very excited to hear about your insights, Sonali. Our viewers are really excited to hear your sharing today. I asked them to share in some questions in the chat, so we might, if time allows, we'll have those questions later on. But first, Sonali, after doing your introduction, myself and I'm sure the viewers also are very much excited to learn what drew you to this space and what keeps you in the workplace wellness and resilience space, which is, I think, in the BPO or IT BPM industry, it's a psychologically demanding workplace.
So, Lian, it's about 15 years spending in this space, right? So, when I entered the field, the psychology as a field, people used to think, it's so fashionable, it's so intriguing. And can you read people's mind? That's the one question that everybody's head it pops up, right? So, technically, when I entered this space because I saw people carrying a silent weight of emotionally demanding work. Yes, mental health and the core clinical side of it was already there, but I think my father was also one of the inspiration of pushing me through this field too. But I saw like a lot of people around me, like working day in, day out, not realizing how emotionally drained out they are, how it's impacting their life. And for me, it was a very fascination as a psychologist to understand human resilience, right? Because when you're working in a professional environment and specifically a high pressure corporate environments, you see that people are exposed to trauma, psychologically complex content, and sometimes it changes your perspective of looking at environment around you, the social aspect of it. And companies and organizations don't realize that people performs their best without they thrive or they perform when you have a very psychologically designed workflow for them, right? That takes care of the mental well-being. So what keeps me going is the impact, because I have seen individually who are on the verge of burnout and have rediscovered their own purpose of life. I have seen leaders where they've transformed their team simply just, changing the way they communicate. And I've also seen the data, which generally most of the organizations talk about, right? Like when you embed the well being into a business strategy, that's you just don't improve the mental health, but you also improve the engagement, performance, retention, and trust. So I think these are the factors that has made me continued my journey into this field.
I love what you said about meaningful impact, Sonali, because at the end of the day, that's what's important. right? When we execute these well-being initiatives or strategies, we want to see the impact and hopefully meaningful and rewarding at that, not just on an organizational level, but hopefully and ideally it has impact on the individual employees in that organization. In connection to that, Sonali, so you mentioned that employee well-being is more than a collection of wellness initiatives, right? So what does that actually look like in practice? Probably for some organizations that you had experience with, maybe you can share how does that really look like versus probably organizations just making an appearance of the wellness initiatives without meaningful impact.
Very good question, Leah. And I think that's a very important question to discuss as well too. So a lot of organization technically mistake a well-being activities as a strategy. So for example, if they're providing yoga sessions, meditation apps, or EAP, which is very valuable, but these are resources. This is not a culture. So when we talk about well-being or real well-being, that's actually reflected on an everyday decisions that you're making in the business, right? So it's in how a leader respond when someone says that they are struggling with their mental health or they're struggling with coping up with the performances, the pressure, right? And let's also face it, these workloads are very realistic, right? uh, it's also whether psychologically safety allows the employees to admit mistake without fear that's existing in the system, whether the managers are trained to recognize any early signs of burnout or not just the not just reached when when someone says I'm in crisis. No, they need to have that readiness of identifying those symptoms, those signs, right? And the organization don't really ask that is what wellness activity should we launch this once. They should actually ask how do we redesign the work so the well-being naturally becomes a part of how people experience their jobs. It's all about experience these days. Let's when you see how other whether it's a spa, whether it's a travel, they all show the experience, right? And people want to experience it. The more they experience this, the more they can identify whether what works for them, what don't work for them. So I think it's a completely different conversation. But coming on to your question, I think these are the things which I feel that the organizations are not looking towards. They are very, very centric to just introducing well-being activities or well-being related apps or EAP support, which I am great but I think it has to be built into the culture now.
And I believe that's also points us to the importance of having a strategy in place, being proactive in our approach so that we can make sure that it is truly embedded in the way that we work and not just those one day activities or one day engagements that you're mentioning, Sonali. I was meant to share with you a white paper that we recently published, Sonali. So in Human Dynamic, we had this. Actually, it was just yesterday. We recently published a white paper on wellness and people as strategy, and it's across 8,000 cases in Asia Pacific, wherein we saw this workforce challenges across four levels. So the individual level, the leadership level, the organizational level, and the external level. And what we saw is that often the approach is just on one level instead of attacking or approaching all these interconnected factors. And I believe that's very much resonating with what you said about just having these one-off events and not being able to sustain the impact that you really want. And if we miss out the work design and the leadership capability of the wellness aspect, we miss the opportunity to have that well-being impact. And with that, Sonali, it reminds me to to ask your personal thoughts and opinion on what resilience really is. So earlier you touched on resilience, but maybe you can share more deeply about what resilience really is on personally, and how do we see that on an organization or workplace environment.
Right. Okay. So I think one of the biggest myth about resilience is that people think resilience means being tough and enough to keep going, but it doesn't. It doesn't. Resilience is not about tolerating unlimited stress. Technically, it means that having the capacity to recover, adapt, and continue performing without losing yourself in this process. And I think personally, my journey in terms of the resilience is also the same, right? There was one point in time in my personal life, there were a lot of things going on, and professionally as well. So sometimes you, as a human being, do tend to have impact on your resilience too, right? But then when I had thought of everything, like nothing is going well, I thought of recovering myself, because again, all these stressors were impacting me physically, emotionally, and psychologically too. So when I went on to the whole crux of the things, that's where I started to understand that my resilience is not about that, okay, I have to keep myself strong and keep going and going. No, I'm a human being. I tend to, break down. I do have challenges to days where I don't feel like getting up and don't doing things, like don't even working, or don't even coming to the office or showing my face to the team. I just want to be my own self. So I slowly, when I started adapting to stuff, I adapting that, okay, this is going to coexist with my environment. These challenges and stresses are going to be there, but how do I recover myself on a daily basis? I can't get that myself impacted, right? And then also showing up at work, because that's where I am earning and that's where everything comes from, right? So yeah, I think it's a whole process, it's a whole journey, and I think everyone should understand that you don't have to be strong to move ahead. And I have seen this where working in a very high pressured environment, sometimes when people ask you this question is, how are you doing, and you say, yeah, I'm doing okay. But no, there are days I'm not doing okay. There are times where I'm like, no, I am irritated, I'm frustrated, right? And sometimes people don't really realize that they become very emotionally numb over the period of time. And that's where I think the system works. When we say it takes a village to raise a child, a system to raise a child, similarly it takes a system from an organizational standpoint for each employee that is working for you, right? That conducive environment or a system needs to be created, which you call it a psychologically safe environment, right? So I think that's what I feel is resilience, and I've gone through that journey of being more resilient now, being able to handle the stresses. Yes, they coexist with me, but I know every day how I have to recover and then continue to keep performing as also as well, both personally and at professional level.
That is a very crucial aspect of wellness or well-being at the workplace, Sonali. I really admire how you made sure that there is good balance between taking care of yourself, which is how you describe resilience as being able to recover and adapt to the environment, while also being able to meet your performance indicators or your expectations at work. And I think that's one of the realities and challenges of leaders when they want to foster wellness. They sometimes put themselves in a tricky situation wherein they must still observe, of course, the workforce performance indicators, right, of an employee or a direct report. So, how do they balance that? Being able to foster a psychologically safe environment while at the same time pushing, in a way, a person to be at their best and thrive at their role and within their teams. So it reminds me also, Sonali, your background in building and designing well-being strategies in such high count or high headcount IT or BPO industries or companies. So where do you think leaders usually get challenged or get wrong in terms of well-being and wellness?
All right. So let me start with the challenges an organizational leadership, technically face. So when they intervene, they always intervene too late. Sorry to say that, but that happens very late, right? It's when they start realizing when somebody is underperforming, when they see the engagement getting dropped, when they see absenteeism increasing. Actually, absenteeism as a factor is also not even seen in the organization. They start looking at it when the retention rate goes down, when attrition goes up. That's where the company starts feeling, okay, what is happening around, right? So now then that realizes, okay, now we really need to have a well-being support, right? And so when they start, like, resilience should be designed into you know they start saying, okay, let's have an employee resilience program for them, like let's bring the mindfulness or meditation apps, have yoga session day, have engagement activities, and suddenly you'll see a splurge of these events going up in the organization, right? But leaders and organization don't realize that the resilience or well-being needs to be built in from the employee journey from the day one, which means you need to have a psychologically informed onboarding. And onboarding is an important piece to it, right? Because that's where a new employee knows that, hey, this organization is here for me. They have my back, right? And the leaders also walk the talk. Yeah, it's not about that leaders just only tell them, oh, we do have EAP support, we have a conversations with them, or we have well-being team on the ground, you can connect with them, or we do our HR team does a lot of well-being engagement initiatives, please do join. No, it's also them realizing that it is needed for the leaders also need that too. It's also when they are also part of the journey, right? So I think the manager capability building that comes as a core strength here when it comes to building that resilient or psychologically safe environment. Then also have structured decompressions after emotionally intense work. Like, there are certain high demanding, high pressured workflows that a lot of employees are working with. But do we have a decompression time? No. Do we have a built-in wellness time for them? No. It's just that they whatever they have to experience has to be either before the work hours or after the work hours. Do you think employees would want to do in those timings? That's their personal time. You're asking them to do something which is through impacting through your organization during their own personal time. That's really not should be from an organization standpoint, right? So that's why that decompression time or wellness time should be built in into the every workflow that you're working, whether it's a BPO, whether it's an IT company, whether it's manufacturing. I think all companies work in a high stressful and high pressure environment, right? I think the another thing that people needs to also understand, have micro recovery moments throughout the day, because that's how you're going to recover. How am I going to recover? I cannot recover once my shift gets over and I'm going back home. No, I have my home task. Let's put it, if we talk about males, they have groceries to pick up, children to pick up from play areas or maybe school, whatever they are doing, that's their own personal time. And then you can't expect them to recover because they don't have a moment to pause. And we are on that always on environment where your phone, your laptop, your watches keep ringing all the time. Do you expect you would recover? No, not at all. So that moment needs to be built into the workflow, because that workflow or that particular environment is impacting them. Having clear escalation pathways. We talk about crisis, we talk about, but why are we waiting for a crisis to happen? Why can't we have a clear escalation pathways in a company where people know that if such incidents will happen, this is how am I going to react? People wait for crisis to happen to have a crisis support, right? Or crisis escalation pathways. But there are other challenges that an employee faces. What about those pathways? That is not clearly said. People tell them, or we've seen organizations telling them, saying, hey, we told you in the start, but who would remember? That needs to be constantly reminded, whether they'll remember those escalation pathways, or they are going to remember the kind of work they are doing, or the job that they are into. So I think we are expecting way too much from the employees to remember a lot of stuff, which is not feasible for any individual to be doing. And also, let's put it, emails, putting that is not going to help people remember. It takes me a day to check my emails. I get over 100 200 emails on a daily basis. Would you expect me to go and read each of the emails? Not possible. There are some emails which I just completely click and delete. And there are also employees who are working on a client devices. They don't have access to certain tools, certain requirements. So imagine if they are in that scenario, how would they actually access your escalation pathways? So I think that needs to be built into the organization. And also, one of the things that I see which is key missing is the well-being check-ins. Operations or delivery does performance check-ins, but there is no well-being check-ins. I have never experienced a leader starting a conversation or a meeting saying, hey, how are you all doing today? Most of the conversation saying, hey, we have this is agenda. No, can you have like a quick 5 minutes? 5 minutes is not an difficult task to take out, just to have a well-being check-in with your team members. Say, hey, how are you doing? Do you even know what's going on in their life? And then I've also heard leaders saying the fact that there are so many employees that I have to cater to, but you're working for them. You are a people's leader only when you're working for them, not they are working for you. You're working for them as a leader. So I think that mindset or a perspective needed to be changed. And then data-driven monitoring of workload and risk trends. I think they generally check is the performance, the attrition, but there are workloads and risk trends that are changing every day on day basis. Let's put it this way: if there is a war that happens between US and Iraq, and immediately what you see is the surge of content going up, right? But that's a risk. That's a risk of mental health to your employees, because they're going to be watching that content and moderating that content. Immediately you will see one credit card goes non-functioning. You'll see a lot of calls from the callers coming in, and customers saying that, hey, what am I going to do with this one? So this is again a pressured environment. I have to handle those conversations. I have to have those difficult conversations. And at times there are certain callers or customers, let's put it, we've also been in that situation where we've been very rude. Right. So I think these are the factors that really makes, when the leaders model that healthy behaviors themselves, that cascades down. So I don't want the leaders to make that mistake of assuming that well-being only belongs to the HR or a well-being team. No, it doesn't. The culture is created by the leadership behavior at every single day that they are in. So it's not my responsibility, it's not your responsibility, it's everyone's responsibility, including them. So I think that culture needs to be built into the organization.
I completely agree. And those are all crucial points that you mentioned, Tsunami. But I would really have to ask, what would be your personal micro recovery activity or any structured decompression activity that you personally do at work?
Okay, I have done. This is something that I've done as an intervention in my PhD. It's an interventional study, but it's a very simple activity, which is called as mindful walking. I think we all have heard this, but we don't know how to practice it, right? You don't need anyone to lead that activity for you. You don't need anyone to tell you what you need to do next. This is something you can do automatically. So take 5 minutes, leave all your phones, gadget aside, just 5 minutes on a daily basis, and you need to build this in your own system, however and whenever you want it. And go for a walk. While you're walking, just count your footsteps. That's it. If you have any thought that interferes in it, you will forget your counting. You see that you automatically forget your counting because your all attention will go to that thought, right? The moment you realize that you have forgotten your counting, just simply let that be and start your counting all over again. Just that simple technique will take you to the whole day, even when your mood is upset, whether you're having a hard day, whether it's a very stressful day, when you have a difficult conversation, even if when you're feeling angry. I think that's where just that environment change. It's something we call it in a psychodynamic approach, which is called as changing of the environment.
Mhm.
Just change the
I would
environment.
really
That
have
changes the
to try
perspective of
that.
looking at the problem. Absolutely. Please try that. I've been doing this now for the last 10 years. I did
Wow.
this as this is part of my whole recovery journey that I started introducing these called as structured pocket mindfulness techniques. And this is what I've used in my PhD also as an intervention study.
That's so interesting, Sonali. Thank you for sharing that. I for sure will definitely try that mindful walking, making sure to count my steps. I hope the leaders joining us also this afternoon will get to try that also, Sonali. I'll give you feedback once I've tried
Oh, I
doing
would love
that.
to hear that.
Yes. So just to wrap up everything, Sonali, because you have shared many insightful ideas about how we can really embed wellness and well-being into the way we work and how we approach the people that we lead. What would you say would be the one thing that you wish more leaders would understand, um, that leaders would understood about employee well-being?
So one, I wish more leaders to understood that well-being is not a soft metric; it's a business capability. So people just don't going to perform despite people are still going to perform despite feeling psychologically unsafe. They will perform because at the end of the day they want to earn, they want to have a own living, so they will continue to perform. But if they're going to feel more psychologically safe, they will thrive. When they're going to feel heard, when they have the autonomy to tell them to share what they're feeling, whether you do have an answer or don't have an answer, you can always tell them saying, I don't have an answer at the moment. They will understand you. But rather than just disregarding their feelings, just disregarding what they're saying, it's good to have that autonomy and that openness to talk, more transparency. And when they're designing the work, I think when I'm using this work is this word is designing, is it's not about, again, as I said, as a separate department or an entity's responsibility. It's the leader's responsibility to design these work keeping the human capacity in mind. I think we don't tend to really take the human capacity into consideration, and every individual has different capacity. So when you're taking it, you're taking all that into consideration. So, for example, like performance becomes sustainable rather than just temporary in nature. So instead, the future of the leadership isn't about asking how much more can people can give. It's about asking how do we create conditions where people can consistently do their best work without sacrificing their work. Because as I said, we can only an organization can only thrive when you have more resilient people in your teams, and that brings the healthiest system into the workflows. That's how you're going to embed well-being. It's, again, as I said, it's not a fancy uh, you know uh, gift that they're getting. This is not something that you're giving them. This is something needs to be embedded, needs to be designed.
I completely agree, Sonali. What a beautiful way of putting what wellness should be at the workplace, making sure that it's a proactive approach and looking at employees as individuals with their whole capacity and approaching it at a holistic level, wherein they will be really able to thrive in a conducive environment. And that's the only way to ensure sustainability at the workplace. Thank you so much, Sonali. I'm sure everyone who tuned with us today have learned so much from your insights. And to those joining us, thank you for spending some time with us. This is Dynamic Dialogues, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.